very much, President Betty and fellow Rotarians. It's great to be here this afternoon and to introduce Dr. Kirk Schulz. Now, when putting together an introduction for someone who's your current supervisor, I always want to make sure that you get it right. Rotary has a four-way test. This is really kind of a one-way test. For someone who's an interim vice president. But Kirk Schulz, as many of you know, currently serves as the 13th president of Kansas State University. And when he came here, this is part of the test, when he came here, he led a very important strategic planning effort to develop what we now know as the Vision 2025 for Kansas State University. Now, immediately prior to coming to Kansas and his appointment as president, he served as vice president for research and economic development at Mississippi State University. And he served on the faculty at Michigan Tech and University of North Dakota prior to that. Now, President Schulz is very active in leadership. He's active in the Boy Scouts of America, as am I, and he serves on the executive board of the Coronado Council. Kirk serves in various other roles and boards of the Commerce Bank of Kansas City, the Greater Manhattan Council, Community Foundation rather, Kansas Bioscience Authority, and the NCAA Board of Governors, the Division I Board of Directors. He's also active in several professional societies, including the American Institute for Chemical Engineers and the American Society for Engineering Education. Now, in recognition for the work that he's accomplished in his professional roles, and particularly his achievements in the field of chemical engineering, Dr. Schulz was selected as a fellow in both the American Society of Engineering Education and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. It's my pleasure to welcome the 13th president of Kansas State University, Kirk Schulz.
Well, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? I know our sound system's got a few difficulties, but Vern, I will tell you, I have no trouble shooting my age in golf. It's either 7 or 8 holes before I get to 52, 53. So, that's not really much of an achievement, but anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. It's neat to come back every couple years and be able to visit with Rotarians across the state of Kansas, certainly here. Yesterday I had the opportunity to talk with the folks in Council Grove, Kansas, and they have a small Rotary club that meets in the basement of the Hayes House, and we have a small home over in Council Grove. I've been in the Hayes House many times and never realized they had a basement, so it was kind of a cool deal all the way around. So let me describe and take for a few minutes, talk about some of the successes that we're having at Kansas State University, some of the great things that are happening, and then I certainly, as always, want to take the opportunity to respond to your questions and things that you all are curious about. I think if I start off, we're an institution on the move, and I think it's hard to drive through campus, see our athletic teams, hear about the things that are occurring around all of our K-State campuses and not feel some excitement that some great things are happening with our university. So let me just kind of talk about 3 or 4 kind of key things. First, enrollment. We're 24,200 students, and as I go around the state, and we've got lots of people who've been associated with the university for a very long time, depending on what years you went, we maybe were considerably smaller at those times, and we want to continue to make sure that we're building a great university in terms of enrollment. We also want to make sure that we're being a modern university in terms of enrollment. So the question would be, how big should we be? We have a group of faculty and staff and administrators on campus that are right now trying to map out what should our enrollments at Kansas State University look to be in the next 5 years. And you say, well, Kirk, this is really easy, just pick a number. Well, if we look at our enrollment mixture now, you've got on-campus, off-campus students. You've got distant students in classroom, international, domestic, undergraduate, graduate. You got to kind of boil all that together and see where do we want to grow, what makes strategic sense for us as an institution, and how can we make sure we maintain the quality of the educational experience. I've also seen some universities out there across across the country who pick these really large enrollment goals. And that's the only thing they want to do is really be big. If you're not careful, you can achieve that, and you're not happy with the product at the end of the day. So as we look towards our future, we want to make sure that the K-State educational experience is still awesome for undergraduate students, master's students, PhD students. In our Sue May's direction, we're going to continue to see more and more students that their first time in Manhattan, when they're getting their degree, is at graduation. And let me tell you, that's kind of a cool thing when you think about somebody getting a master's degree in engineering or something, live anywhere around the country, around the world, and the first time they see K-State and feel part of what Manhattan is when they're coming and showing up in May at graduation, walk across the stage to get their diploma cover. We like to emphasize that. So next time you're at graduation, you see us handing all those out, and you say, wow, that must be a logistical nightmare to get the names and all that stuff. It's only a diploma cover. And then we mail those diplomas out, assuming they did well in finals. The other thing is we talk about our incoming students in our classes. This year at K-State, we're a little smaller. We had the most academically gifted class in our history with an average ACT nearly 24, or almost 25, excuse me. So it's gone from 23.6 to nearly 25 over the last 4 or 5 years. We also have the largest, most multicultural, diverse class that we've had in our history. So if you look back at 10, 15 years ago and look today, we are going to make sure that we're bringing to campus students from across the world, our Latino populations in the state of Kansas that are in the Kansas City market and Western Kansas and things like that. We want to be the school of choice for many of these different groups where they come and not only have a great educational experience, but have an environment where they feel supported and can be really successful. And I think this goes back to Jim's earlier comments about the progressiveness of Kansas. K-State needs to be the progressive leader in the state and making sure we got a great place for all Kansans to come have an educational experience. Well, the other thing that we've really had some great success on over the last several years is fundraising. And as you see all these construction projects, which I'll talk about, some of that is state of Kansas investment. Some of it is investment of tuition dollars. A lot of it is investment for people like yourselves in the room that are helping us aspire to new heights with those dollars. So over the last 3 years, we've averaged $167 million in private philanthropy to the university, including a highlight 1 year of $211 million. We've had 2 gifts in this campaign, one a $60 million gift and one a $70 million gift to the university. There wasn't too many years ago that would have been sort of unheard of. It's neat. We get inspired when people have those kind of resources and are willing to invest them in Kansas State University, but it also makes us make sure that we're going out and are we engaged with everybody we need to be engaged with. One of the things that you probably found is we have some deans in the room and others. A lot of our folks are on the road a lot. We're out visiting our alumni and friends, 50% in the state of Kansas, 50% outside the state of Kansas. Not every alumnus comes to a football game. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek, but if we sit in Manhattan and we wait for people to kind of come through and say, oh, by the way, we'd like to tell you while you're here about what we're doing, we're not going to get the job done. We have to be out in New England, on the West Coast, down in Texas, sitting with people in their homes, describing what kinds of things we're doing at K-State, asking them what was important about their experience here, and then we just match them up with great things happening by our faculty, staff, and students. So when you hear those numbers, everybody should be proud of those. But as you walk through campus and see the progress we're making, a lot of it is due to private philanthropy at record levels. We're in a $1 billion fundraising campaign for K-State, the Innovation Inspiration Campaign, 8 years, seeks to raise $1 billion. We're through 5.5 years, and we've raised already $820 million. So by the end of that 8-year time frame, we could be at $1.1 to $1.2 billion raised for Kansas State University. So we've got it's a team of individuals that are all doing a great job being out there. It's alumni, friends, being generous, and it's a great foundation staff that are out there helping kind of marry everybody together between wants and needs and what people are willing to invest on. But when you hear those numbers, they can be kind of astounding, but remember, it's what's making a difference for our students, our faculty and staff, to make sure they have a great environment. We're supporting people's scholarships. We have terrific faculty, all of those that kind of go into having a great university. The other thing that I like, presidents like two things, right? Winning football teams and construction, right? So we got the winning football stuff. That's in good shape. Coach Snyder's got that taken care of. If you walk through campus now, you see cranes everywhere. If you follow my Twitter and Facebook feed, our students are just thrilled about all the construction going on and don't mind the inconvenience at all. But we've got a variety of great projects going on, so let me just kind of talk through a few of these, and I'm going to do them in list fashion because if I talk about each one, we'll be here a long time. So recently completed projects, we have 4 big ones. The Purple Mask Theater, and if you have not had a chance to see this, I urge you to see what we can do with an old Memorial Stadium, turning that space into something that has the K-State style to it with the limestone, but really you step in that, it's hard to believe that it used to be the place where all the pigeons were roosting and the water was coming through and it was not so good. Engineering Phase 4. If you want to see a truly spectacular set of academic spaces, walk through the newest addition to our College of Engineering. It is breathtaking, it's spectacular, it is really something else. And I got to admit, I've been in a lot of engineering buildings and seen cool stuff. I had a tour through there for the first time right before Christmas. One of the things I've learned as president is, the construction people really don't want you kind of coming through the site. They see the necktie and everybody's got to clean everything up. But anyway, I walked through there and it looks great. So make sure you take the time. It looks modern. It's got great flexible facilities. And it's the type of thing that when we bring prospective engineering students in, I want them saying, this is where I'm going to go to school because this school's invested in the facilities needed here. The Veneer Family Football Complex, we're going to have an open house sometime this semester, so anybody in the community can come out and see it and check it out if you haven't seen it. It is a terrific, terrific facility, and it's got not just stuff for football. Everybody always assumes it's only for football, but we've got a lot of our academic study rooms and other things in there. Again, first-class space. And then fourth, the KSU Foundation building. Many of you know we started that project, hit the recession, stopped it, restarted it back up, and really that building has turned out very well. There'll be lots of opportunities to go through there as well. But those are 4 things that I would say we've completed in the last 12 months. Currently under construction. Now we could be here for a while. The College of Business Administration building. I no longer see the sun come up or down. That thing is huge. When they showed all the construction diagrams, and they show it on a flat piece of paper, you go, oh yeah, that looks kind of big. As you all see it, and as you go by it now, 140,000 square feet. That's a pretty big academic building. But that looks great. That'll be open this summer. The College of Architecture, Planning and Design, and the Seton Complex renovations. We've dropped a lot of that in the back side of it that was really awful space, and that construction is moving along very, very well. The K-State Student Union. The Student Union has needed some refurbishment, some renovation for a while, but we're going to put a sports bar in there and have some different things. And many of you, depending on whenever you went to school or wherever you went to school, student unions kind of change their style and philosophy over time. When I was a student in the early 1980s, almost every student union had kind of a bar type area in there where a lot of folks went. And then what happens, those kind of went out of phase. And then they had different kinds of things. So we're going to have some local restaurants and things in there. You're going to love the student union. The best part, Call Hall ice cream. You don't have to go to Call Hall anymore. It'll be right there in the student union. So for those of us worried about our fitness thing, I got to do some of that Spartan stuff and eat all that ice cream. So the most spectacular project on our campus that has been spectacular in terms of inconvenience has been the chiller plant. Believe it or not, we are spending about $65 million on some much needed infrastructure upgrades. And so if you're on campus this summer and you came to different intersections that were all torn up, you wondered what we were doing, it's a 2-year project, and as we add all this additional square footage, we really needed to invest dollars in basic infrastructure. And so as you drive through campus, you're not going to see much, but know that as we add these new buildings on, they're going to be more energy efficient. We'll be able to maintain and do the heating and cooling, air conditioning, all that stuff in a much more reasonable fashion. And it's the type of thing that now we do this now and invest now. The president 20 years from now that's looking at this will go, thank goodness they spent the time, effort, and investment dollars to do that when they did. Weefold Hall. The residence hall's going up. They're working on that 24 hours a day now. I've heard from some students that were excited that there was construction going on at 2 or 3 in the morning. But we call balls coming up out of the ground. Every time you go by there, you can really see it. I keep asking, I said, boy, it looks like we got a lot of work to do there. And they said, Pat's already sold housing contracts for there for the fall. So we will be done. If they're not done, I will have about 500 people camped in the backyard of the president's house. So you see a tent city there, you'll know what's up. And then Bill Snyder Family Stadium, the northeast corner end zone renovation. And I think it's been amazing for me to watch over the last couple of years under John Curry's leadership and his going out and really working hard, and many of you in the room investing, the transformations that have occurred to the stadium environment, from great Wi-Fi during the games to a concourse now where people are going to walk all the way around there, and we got some zones where people can bring in and have a group of friends or corporate partners. Anyway, that whole environment continues to improve, and I think this is really that kind of last piece of that we really need. We have 3 planned projects that we're out kind of talking with people about and working towards. This includes a new geosciences building. The current geosciences building was like 6 other things throughout its history. And it's probably not really been a great building for any of them, but it's certainly not very good for geosciences. While the price of oil is certainly down, we know for the long term in Kansas, the energy industry is an important industry for the state of Kansas. We do a great job supporting the ag industry. We got to make sure we're doing the same things out of engineering and the sciences to support the energy industry. And so this will be a new interdisciplinary research building, housing geosciences, and have some modern laboratory and classrooms. We're currently out talking with folks about that. A multicultural center. Many people saw a lot of things that happened at the University of Missouri. We have not had that same level of angst expressed in our community. It doesn't mean we don't have some of the same issues. It just means our students, our faculty and staff have elected to kind of work with the senior leadership team to resolve some of those things. But one of the things we don't have is a multicultural center that's a welcoming environment for our multicultural students, which is a growing part of our student body. So we're out talking to folks about that. And then finally, McCain Auditorium. Many of you enjoy lots of wonderful events in McCain, the seating on the inside, and since Todd's been here, think about the stage and the sound system and the lighting upgrades. The lobby area has not kept pace with that. So we need to blow out that lobby area, make it a lot larger, make it an event space, and have some intimate spaces for other smaller fine arts types of exhibitions and master art classes and things like this. So it's an addition to McCain, not taking the auditorium and doing anything, but those are 3 things that we're planning, and we always got 4 or 5 more in the hopper that we're always thinking about. Let me finish my comments quickly with talking about economic development in the region. NBAF is coming up out of the ground. As many of you know, first 4 or 5 years, we spent all that time trying to get the money to build a $1.25 billion federal facility here in Manhattan. So we were successful at that. I give Ron Truman, Sue Peterson, our delegation, a lot of credit for, think about this. We have a Democratic president. We have a very Republican state. And this is the largest federal project that they've done in the last 4 or 5 years. The fact that that got done was really a credit to a lot of hard work by numerous individuals. But the question is, how do we optimize the economic impact for Manhattan, for K-State, for Riley County? Just because you're building a building doesn't mean everybody's just going to show up. So one of the things that we've done in the foundation building that I mentioned is the first floor is all leasable space. We have companies like Garmin and U.S. Engineering that have elected to put offices here so that they can get some of the great talented students we have doing paid internships, going to class, and helping them meet their bottom line. We have a second building in planning stages, and I believe the board will approve us moving forward with that this summer. And we're already talking to several other major companies out there about locating in Manhattan, Kansas. We think this is going to be important, and K-State wants to be one of the principal drivers of some economic growth in this area. I think as the largest employer, it's incumbent upon us to work together with the city, with the community, with local businesses, to make sure that we're advancing an agenda. So 10 years down the road, I don't want people going, wow, what a missed opportunity. They built this huge lab just think what they could have done. I want people coming from around the country to Manhattan saying they did the best job of anybody in the nation at this. Let's figure out how we can do it and duplicate it in our community. So I've thoroughly enjoyed 7 years at K-State. It's been great so far. We've got a lot of wonderful things in the future. I appreciate the great community support the university gets and the financial commitment so many of you make, whether it's attending athletic events, whether it's coming to cultural events at McCain, whether it's supporting us financially, whether it's just in the community talking up K-State, wearing purple, and making sure you don't wear that red and blue stuff. So with that, I appreciate the time today, and I'd certainly love to answer any questions anybody might have.
All the new construction is exciting for not just K-State, but for all of us. But my favorite buildings on campus are the oldest ones.
Mm-hmm.
What's the plans to make sure that they're still there in the future and how to take care of them? Okay,
the question was basically how we're going to defer maintenance on all of our old classic buildings. Any other questions? We get about roughly $10 million a year from the state of Kansas to maintain $1 billion infrastructure. So what we're having to do is look for creative ways to do renovations of some of those things. So if I use 2 examples, Memorial Stadium, which was in danger, we were going to have to tear it down or we're going to have to fix it up. I mean, it had reached a deterioration point. You had to do one thing or the other. We were able to use private funds basically to go and repurpose what we use for that. And so we're taking that off of the deferred maintenance thing because basically we're coming in and fixing it up. Seton Complex was another big dinosaur we had in terms of huge costs associated with trying to maintain it. And by going in and renovating that, we at least buy ourselves some more time. For example, though, Anderson. I mean, I love Anderson Hall. It's an iconic part of the K-State campus. I don't know how you'd ever find $85 or $90 million, which would probably cost to do a historic renovation to a building like that. So the bottom line is we're going to continue to look for creative ways, but I think we're going to use that money wisely. We're going to get some private dollars to help where we can, and I think we're going to do selected renovations of some of those older facilities so we keep the outside and the facade the same. I'd like to see that on our campus, but that we fix up the inside with modern heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and office space. So I don't have a great answer for that. We're just continuing to chip away at it. It's like eating an elephant, right? One bite at a time. We're going to keep at it. Yes, sir.
I noticed you didn't mention much about the Welcome Center that's being constructed. Could you give everybody an update on that?
Yeah, so the Campus Welcome Center is on the Student Union side of Memorial Stadium. There actually, it's be called the Burney Family Welcome Center. Rand and Patty Burney and their family gave the lead gift on that, been big supporters, gave the first gift and then came back and made a second gift. And we've had several other folks that have also made significant gifts. So that's roughly an $18 million privately funded project. One end of that, the end closest to the Alumni Center, will be where students, prospective students and their families kind of come to visit. Everything's in one place, so you don't have to run around to see somebody from financial aid and all this kind of stuff. The opposite end is where career planning and placement will be, and they'll have interview rooms and the modern sorts of things that a career planning and placement office should have. We should finish construction up, I'm told, in about April, and it will be open this summer sometime. So clearly when we start recruiting next year in the fall, when everybody kind of comes back, it'll be open and fully operational. The furniture will be delivered 2 weeks late and all that kind of nonsense. So, I think you should expect that for it to be open during the summer where people come through and kind of check it out. But it's going to be spectacular. It's going to help us out a lot. And any of you have gone around and looked at schools with prospective students. I mean, we love K-State, but that first, what they saw was probably not our best foot forward. Now what they're going to see is something where they're going to go back and the first thing they see is going to be pretty spectacular. Right up here. Yes, sir.
Actually, follow up on the first question, College Court, or Seton Court, which is the oldest building on campus. I wondered whether that identity of that building is going to be maintained with all of the reconstruction that's going on with Seton.
I think the College of Architecture, Planning and Design is handling some of that with our university architect. We always want to preserve the integrity of structures and names and things like that as much as we possibly can. I think there are some parts of that complex, and I want to make sure that we're not talking about different, that when I first did my campus tour, and I blame Nelson Golly for not telling me this when he hired me, was they said, can we go back there? They go, oh no, that's condemned. And I thought, we've got a space on the university campus with students, faculty, and staff that are condemned. So some of that stuff in the back of the building has been completely dropped. But the front part of the building,
Part that looks out on Kaufman Commons.
yeah, that's still going to be preserved, and that'll look like that because that's an important historic part of our campus. Yes, sir.
We seem to be on this tangent, but I have a similar question in that I've heard how impressive that new engineering building is, but it doesn't seem to relate very well to the building it is attached to or to the campus in large. Can you speak to the new development, whereas the College of Business buildings, all limestone, seems to fit in very well. This seems quite different. And can you speak to the thought process in the architectural style of some of this development?
You know, and any architects in the room, this is going to scare the heck out of them. So I take your question seriously. I think with the engineering expansion, my first initial thoughts are, I just love the limestone and slate roofs and, you know, just build it all that way. Part of what they said is it's also got to tie in to the existing engineering complex that was there that had the concrete and some of those kinds of things. So if you look at it from that perspective, I think they try to tie it in and do a little bit of stonework kind of on the outside of it, but you're right, it looks distinctly different than some other parts of it. I think the Seton complex and that expansion is going to have a little bit of different look. It's going to have some limestone and glass, but we have a committee that reviews those sorts of things, and I kind of let them do that, and frankly, I try to stay out of it. Now, somebody came and said, we're going to build in the middle of campus, a glass and stainless steel building, no stonework, nothing that looks anything else. I think at that point, it would be incumbent upon me as president to intercede, but largely I do leave that to other folks on campus. That's a great question. Well, folks, once again, thank you for all you do. I hope you come out on Saturday and support our men and women. I think we're going to get a big victory over Ole Miss. And the women are going to be in the NCAA tournament this year. The men are going to be in postseason. So let's go Cats. Thank you.
Schulz, in honor of your being with us today, we're going to donate this book